What's up guys, YST here and welcome back to the channel. And today I am joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Nub Raids. How you doing today, bro?
Yeah, that's right. We're going to be arrested, I think, by the community after the opinions in this video. So,
yeah, it's going to be a very interesting one. I will say as well that I have been kind of preparing this one for, should I say preparing? Did I just say preparating? Is that even a word?
Preparating. That's a good word.
Yes.
No, leave that in.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool word, right? I'm going to use that from now on. But I have been preparing this video for Firrol for a very long time because on YouTube, I always get in my comments that there's not a single guide out there since the release of this champion. And I know that it's only been 2 months, but usually when there's a champion of this caliber, you know, usually people get a hold of different accounts and showcase them a little bit. And I guess, like, I just wanted to go back and forth with you because you're actually known as the king of the Hydra, right? It's one of your favorite pieces of content in the game, and get your takes on this champion as well throughout this champion guide. So I guess as this was playing in the back, let's just take this off for now. Look at that magic.
Wow.
And let's just
a streamer or something, dude. What? How do you do that?
And do you know what? Just to show you how valuable this champion is, or how like rare it is to get this synergy of skills, we're not even going to filter by his name, guys. We're going to go debuffs and put decreased accuracy, and then we're going to go buffs and put increased resistance. And there is one champion on my account that can fulfill these roles. So, Firrol The Barkhorn, in terms of just aesthetics, are you a fan of this one? You like it?
Yeah, he's super cool. Like I was honestly for multiple years I've been hoping for a Christmas tree themed fusion, and we've never got it. I remember seeing him, I think, before Christmas, and like, yeah, this is the time. And of course, he wasn't the fusion, so I'm a little sad about that. But no, he's sick. I love it. Yeah, Christmas tree, but he's kind of scary. Sylvan, yeah, he's great.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to be walking in a back alley and bump into Firrol. This guy, I can imagine, he's like 50 foot tall. Wait, what's on his legs? You know, someone's tried to tie him up and he's breaking free. But anyway, okay, so I guess let's just break down the kit first. So with the A1, with the Clubber Trunk, he attacks one enemy with a 100% chance of placing a decreased speed, which I think is actually very powerful. Now, we can just bring in decreased speed, AoE, right? Which is obviously a lot more optimal. But when you consider stuff like, a good example would be my Sneak Track, someone I love to use, being the Spirit Affinity. And let's just say you get a weak hit on one of those heads, right, and takes you out of your rotation. Having a little bit of a backup, I'm actually a big fan of because it gives you that extra chance to come in and place that debuff. And one thing that I've noticed is he's kind of like a mythical in the way that he just ignores resistance on these skills. Like, this has only been seen on mythical champions, right?
That's right. And no mythical books required either.
Yeah.
Just does it.
Just the cost of like 5,000 legendary books, guys. But Boreal Growth attacks all enemies and has a 100% chance of placing a decreased accuracy and a block buffs in the same ability on a 3-turn cooldown. That's bonkers, right? That's what we're looking for Hydra.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the best moves for Hydra, just full stop. Like block buffs, I think it's obviously well known how impactful that is. Decreased accuracy, I think, remains consistently probably the most underrated debuff in the game for Hydra, because you put decreased accuracy out and you stop half of what they're doing. Right? You stop all of the buff steals, you stop the provokes, you stop all the poisons. It's massive, and other stuff too. So yeah, a big fan of that.
Yeah, I kind of bank on decreased accuracy because I'm not a player that does mischief tanking with, you know, the most buffs on a champion and all of that good stuff. I kind of just like to put the stats on my champs, throw in decreased accuracy, resist everything, and no block debuffs required, which will cycle round to the topic of today's video with Duchess later. But Aurora Cloak places a 50% increased resistance for 3 turns, guys, whilst also placing a perfect veil on all allies except his champion for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. Now, once again, synergies, there is not a lot of perfect veil champions in this game, period. Like, very, very minimal. This is why we look towards champions like those Duchess Lilitus, or even like a Tatua Rhymehyde, to bring this in to counter the Head of Torment. And let's just say, I know that Inquisitor Shemel is a popular strategy, right? Just counter it and it's all good. But Perfect Veil is a very good form of damage reduction as well, right? To have on your champions.
Oh, Perfect Veil is great. I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you said that there's just not many Perfect Veil champions in the game. So that's why, like, I often lean very heavily on Inquisitor Shemel, is that I think I've got Rector Drath and that's about it. I mean, I've got Tatura Rhymehyde as well, but again, it's not consistent. And they tend to be on long, they have long cooldowns. So it's a bit of a problem with Firrol, but again, it's easy to solve if you put him with a buff extender, which is really, really valuable, especially with his passive, which we'll come to. Buff extension, so strong in combination with him. But yeah, it's Perfect Veil. It's a really premium thing. I'm actually shocked that there aren't more Perfect Veil champs to deal with Hydra. They just don't seem to care too much. So it's nice to see Firrol come with it.
Yeah, so far he's bringing in so many fundamentals: decreased speed, block buffs, decreased accuracy, increased resistance, and perfect veil. And that combination of increased resistance with decreased accuracy, you're literally never taking debuffs with such minimal requirements, which I've got a bit of maths from Saf, of course.
Yes,
Helps me out of all of that stuff. But Spirit of the North, this is where his true value comes to, in my opinion, because if an ally is under 2 or more buffs, will increase your resistance by a further 50. So if the increased resistance was enough, how about an extra 50? And then if allies are under 3 or more buffs, increases their accuracy by 50. And if they're under 4 or more buffs, will increase their damage by 20%. It's like a permanent Longbeard's passive, but for everybody, all of the time, and he brings in 2 of the buffs himself, right? You just need to find a shield and an increased speed, and there you go. Everybody's getting 20% more damage. What do you feel about this one?
I mean, it's one of the best passives in the game. Like, it's actually broken, right? Like 20% more damage. That's nuts. I mean, you stack him up with a protection set or something, or someone else in your team with protection, and you can be coming in with just these huge damage bonuses that, you know, a year ago, we just did a video just earlier today, recorded it with Hades and Saf on power creep. Like, that level of power didn't exist before. Like, imagine throwing him in. Like, I think the team I linked you it would probably pop it up at some point. Was like, probably, I think the Sifi is probably in protection, and then a Firrol maybe in protection as well. And like, you could be coming in with, you know, 50-70% damage bonus or something. That's nuts. That's just crazy. And then of course, you know, the resistance and accuracy stats are amazing too. Like, just with great haul bonuses and that resistance passive and its increased resistance, even as a resist aura if you need. And it's like, everyone can be a mischief tank with probably building 0 resist. I don't know. I'm curious what the maths actually works out to, but it's nuts.
Yeah, 100%. Let me just find this perfect veil real quick. Wait, where is perfect veil? Am I being silly? Is it this one?
It's bottom left of that. That's
there we go. It's the hood.
That's it.
I always forget. Some of these are like single targets and stuff, but in terms of Duchess, I did want to speak a little bit about this because I have been using Duchess for the longest time ever. And as I mentioned before, I'm not a big mischief tank person. I haven't got crazy stats to kind of, you know, alleviate every single debuff in the game because the accuracy thresholds for Nightmare are incredibly high. Now, what Duchess brings to the table that I do like is an increased attack. But for example, if you're using someone like Mishinaki as your massive damage dealer, for instance, he's defense-based, so he's not getting a value for that. And I would argue that increased attack is a lot more, I'd say you see it a lot more, right? You could bring in Mithrala Life Banes, you could bring in Arbiters with Terminator Fills and increased attacks. So there's other champions that can fulfill that role. But what Firrol does basically blocks your debuffs without having a block debuffs buff, because you're just not taking any debuffs, right? So in essence, he's kind of covering that basis, but for me to a higher caliber, because you're now resisting these debuffs, and there's not that chance of block debuffs get stolen, spread onto everybody, puts you in a bad situation, reset your run. And I never see that anymore since having Firrol.
Yeah, 100%. It's a fun story, actually. Like, I haven't done takeovers in ages, but I remember doing takeovers maybe a couple of years ago. And like, I saw so many whales like going in with these crazy teams like a Duchess and like Krisk and all of this with terrible builds, and just their teams wouldn't work. And it was, just they didn't have any resistance and no way to deal with it. And just the block debuffs would be stolen by Duchess and they'd all fall over dead almost straight away. And like, you'd be shocked how many people like had no idea how to play at all. And we're just like, I don't understand why I'm failing. I've got Duchess. And it's like, well, actually, she's a bit more complicated to use in there.
I'm not a big fan of block debuffs in Hydra personally. It's just something that I never like to do. I'd rather decrease accuracy, resist it, than actually bring it in.
I mean, that's way better. Yeah, because then you resist the turn meter steals and the buff steals as well, which block debuffs can't stop.
Yeah, so well, she does bring in an AoE revival, which I think is phenomenal. But of course, like I mentioned prior, you could bring in Arbiter, who actually bring you a turn meter boost as well, if that's what you're really needing. But for the teams that I've actually built today, I built them, I'd say, relatively average in terms. It's not like crazy sustain, but I never had to revive once. I died from consumes rather than revivals. So for me personally, I'm not really banking on this, but it's a great backup for progression. But also, AoE attacks is only 15% from bosses, not 25%. So with all things considered, I honestly believe that Firrol brings in way more fundamentals for the Hydra to Duchess in 2024. And I genuinely believe that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I couldn't agree more. Like, and again, going back to the topic of power creep, which we were talking about earlier. Like with the new blessings, with area bonuses, with just the new levels of gear and ascension and stuff like that, it's much, much, much easier now to not need a reviver in your team. And if you don't need a revive, and if you don't need that Duchess damage reduction passive, yeah, she's not bringing anywhere near as much as Firrol does. He brings, he's doing everything she does, but better. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, he opens up the opportunity for, because we get 6 spaces in our team, right? And being able to have a Firrol actually fulfills the roles of like 2 to 3 champions in one. And this gives you more room for a damage dealer, gives you more room for another reviver, if that's what you want to bring to the table, right? I would say one downside of Firrol that I have been seeing is with Duchess, she has single target A1, so you can ping pong around Head of Torment, right? I'd say the synergy problem for Firrol is because you need to do an AoE with the block buffs of full auto, he's not perfect veiled. So, if you're going through and you're getting perfect veiled, you can therefore miss your turn, which is where I'd say pair him up with someone like a Mithrala Lifebane just to cleanse that off him when that occurs. It's a good cycle. But outside of that, increase your damage by 20. It's not a joke.
It's crazy.
It's some crazy stuff. But let me just, do you know what we say could be one thing, but I do want to bring up what you guys say in the community, because we do something on the YouTube channel, which I'm sure you're aware, called Ragey Rather Sundays. It's my favorite time of the week. And the topic for last week was, for this video, I guess, I wanted to see what my viewers would think. So if you could pick one of these champions to join your Hydra team, who would you choose? And I would say that, although it looks very low, I think it's very easy for, do you know when you're skimming across the YouTube timeline and you're like, you could just see, who would you rather have, Duchess or Firrol? I could argue that, 100%, I would rather have a Duchess for the rest of the game, PvP or, Doom Tower content, whatever that may be. The revivals and AoE damage reduction is amazing. Love it. But we're speaking about just Hydra today, and I believe that this does, even though it's a 16%, when you consider 8.5k votes, that is still 1,300 people believe that Firrol is better than Duchess for Hydra. And I still think that's a good proportion for this one here.
Yeah. I mean, you got 84% of people are wrong. Mostly wrong. Not always, again. Like, if you need that damage reduction and revive, she might be better. But broadly speaking, there's no question, certainly for pushing higher end stuff. Absolutely, Firrol is not just better, I'd say significantly better. Doubly so, because you just mentioned as well, like Duchess, Firrol is not an arena champion, but Duchess is, and you're definitely using Duchess in arena. And the types of stats you're building on her are completely different, right? Like in arena, you want as much HP as possible. Probably want like Stone Skin or Bolster, and those things are just not very useful for Hydra. Whereas if you're running her for Hydra, you probably don't need her to be particularly tanky because she's going to be just fine. And you're probably running her like super fast and reflex to get cooldown reduction on the perfect veils. That would be an awful build for arena. So because she's good for so many areas, you got to sort of, you probably focus on arena as the most important. And she's going to suffer in Hydra. Firrol, he's a specialist, right? You slap him in Hydra gear because that's what he's good for.
It's good that you mentioned that, actually, because then that opens up players to, heavily build their Duchess for other areas in the game and not just Hydra. And then if you pull a Firrol, it's a no-brainer, but to bring him in. But what I wanted to do is just read off a few highlight comments with maybe the most likes on them. So this one's got 20 likes on it, including myself. I thought it was a pretty cool one. So he says, Firrol absolutely blows Duchess out of the water when it comes to Hydra. He hard counters so many heads alone, provided that you have even a little bit of resistance and accuracy on your champions already. We've got perfect veils to counter Torment, block buffs to counter pretty much every other head in the game, increased resistance, decreased accuracy for Mischief and Blight, and his passive means even less accuracy and resistance is required, not to mention the 20% damage on everything else as well. Not only does he fully partially counter Decay, which is basically limited to provoke only, it's honestly mind-blowing how much better he is. And then also speaks about the 15% instead of 25% of Duchess. I think one of the funniest ones in here was like, I think it had like 50 likes on it. Let me find it.
Okay.
It was like, what was it? This one here, 68 likes. This one's pretty simple for me. I would rather a Duchess because it would mean I have a Duchess. And I think this is what kind of swayed a lot of the poll. It was like, they chose what they would rather have, which I understand. But it was all about Hydra, guys, this one.
It's a classic school mistake, isn't it? People don't answer the actual question.
Yeah, Firrol is a lot more useful than Duchess in similar stats. You can also put a full team of Nuke with only one support, Elver in his case, and one debuffer, like a Lydia. And he's got up to 300 million without any struggles. Oh, he went from 300 million with Duchess to 500 million without any struggles. So
wow.
That just shows the value, right? The amount of damage.
That's dramatic.
Anything else that kind of sucks? I just pulled a Firrol, haven't seen a single guide on him. Well, there you go. Behemoth, we got you there.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when you said, actually, that no one's done a video on him. I was like, what?
Duchess is not only for Hydra, but for me, it's simple. Duchess is the queen of raid. I agree. But it's all about Hydra, guys. Have them both. My Duchess is on another level for any content. So yeah, it was kind of like mixed. Like there was some people that really understood the value, and then some people that maybe just hasn't seen the champion yet in full effect, right?
I mean, if you'd like me as the external examiner here for your exam, guys, like if YST had asked you who would you rather, Duchess or Firrol, you guys would have scored top marks. But he asked you who's better in Hydra. A lot of you failed. That's my take. I can say that because it's not my channel.
So all right. So in terms of one thing else I wanted to show. So in terms of Veil and Perfect Veil champions in this game, you can see that there's like literally 3 that I would say is useful for Hydra. That's Duchess, Firrol, and Tatora. And you know, Tatora arguably is probably the worst out of the bunch, maybe.
Yeah.
Like
I'd actually say Rector's better, probably.
Rector's probably better than him, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's very limited. It shocks me.
It's shocking,
such a key component to counter one of the hardest or most competitive game modes in the game with Hydra Clash nowadays, right? It just blows my mind that there's only about 4 options in the game of any kind of value that can even counter the mechanics of Torment. And it's mind-boggling. Outside of like Inquisitor.
Like even a lot of top teams do use 2 Hanorach, right? And they just cleanse. You know, instead of you run like 2 Hanorach and a Mikage or something, and you know, you just cleanse off the fears. Like you don't even bring a Veil to deal with it. Like people especially don't have a Firrol. Yeah, perfect Veil. I am still shocked. I mean, bearing in mind, Hydra's been out for what, 2 years at least, and this is it. That's all there is to deal with.
And just so you guys know as well,
like
the Perfect Veil also reduces damage by 15%, so you can get a value like a Duchess gives to your team, but using a Firrol's buffs as well. So it's not just hiding your champions. For anyone that's not aware, you're actually getting a damage reduction for that, which is phenomenal. So, okay, leading into this next part, I do want to kind of do a bit of the math stuff that Saf sent to me. So let's just take Head of Mischief here as an example, where you need 125 points of resistance for the accuracy check. So if he's got 350 accuracy to reach 90 to 95% chance to resist, so the higher end, the rule of thumb is basically plus 125, as you see with the 455, in order for a consistent resist. So let's just say now that we got 50% decreased accuracy, right? That will kind of bring that down to 175, so 300 to resist with the plus 125 rule. And then if you've got a 150 build, so you've got 150 resistance on your champion, plus the 50 from the passive, making it 200, plus the increased resistance to get to that 300 resistance point. Having 150 resistance is like laughable, right? You can get that in substats. So you can literally go from literally 350 or 450 resistance to 150 in your build and get away with resisting stuff, with all things considered. It's pretty remarkable, right?
Let me take a quick look. I'm just curious. If I look at my Razzlevarg and I see how much resist. My Razzlevarg has 165 resistance, not built for it. If I include Hydra area bonuses, he has like 200 resist. You know?
Yeah.
just there.
So that alone, you're resisting everything. Just from that, just because of Firrol. But if you didn't have Firrol, you'd have to bring all of those champions up to those stats. And this is where I say that Firrol is one of a kind. There is no one that does it to the caliber of this champion. So if you've got him, get him out of the vault. Invest some of your best gear on him because he is absolutely amazing. As you see in here as well, just for some ratings, we've got, 5 out of 5 for Hydra. He's going to be great for the Doom Tower, alleviating all those debuffs coming your way. In terms of Spider, he could be a great tank because of that Perfect Veil stuff, right? You can also be great in the Frost Spider. You're not going to be taking all those debuffs with all that high resistance. Eternal Dragon, no more block active skills. So it's not just Hydra, but you can actually bring that same build elsewhere and get a lot of value out of it. So, okay. So that was kind of like the off-topic bit for the Duchess stuff. So let's just go into the Firrol builds now. So I've currently got him in Protection. And I feel like this is it's kind of like a build in process, I guess. Because if I just move you out of the way, we haven't got a full set of Protection yet. I'm still struggling on the last 2 pieces. But what this is actually going to enable is, with the full set, you're going to get a 75% chance to place protected buffs, but allies will deal 5% more damage for each buff placed by the wearer. Now, when we consider that he places 2 more buffs here, you're getting a 10% damage boost on top of the already 20% damage boost. So you're getting a 30% damage boost just from this champion being built in protection. It's freaking bonkers, man. Power creep.
Yeah, it is. It's insane. Yeah, it is absolutely nuts.
So is there any other ways that you would maybe consider building your Firrol? Because obviously protection isn't, accessible to everybody to get a full set so early on, right?
Yeah, if you don't have the full set of protection, like probably Reflex or Relentless could be really good options as well, just to cycle through his turns more often. But I think that the ideal is probably the 9-piece protection. I think I've also seen some people, like, if you're struggling to get a Hex on the team, you could throw him in a cursed set. I don't think that's ideal. He only has the one AoE attack, but I mean, it's something you could do if you're struggling to get that set in.
I could see that, yeah.
For me, I would personally be definitely looking towards the 9-piece protection. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been every single time I look at, I've got the pieces, but they're crap.
They suck.
It brings my speed all the way down by like 30 speed. I'm like, do I just factor in the extra damage or do I just factor in the speed? But it'll take him out of my cycle. It's an yin and yang. Right. We'll think about it. But mastery wise, I have actually gone as so. We're gonna get close here, Mr. Nubby.
Oh,
you're right, buddy.
Oh, hello. Cover your eyes, Firrol.
So we got the War Master because he does have 2 forms of AoE, and I think that's the best way for Hydra. And I've actually got a bit of a quirky one going on here for the support tree as well. So in terms of this one, we have got the rapid response to increase his turn meter when those buff cast by this champion removes or expires, which I think is great. And we've also got an accuracy as well here. We've got Laura Steel, we got Cycler Magic to maybe cycle around your turns if you want to, but the main reason is for the lasting gifts, because we're trying to extend the value of those buffs that he's placing on our champions, especially that he's going to be going so fast, right? We want to keep that up as much as possible. As well as Master Hexer to extend the value of those block buffs, so if you're facing Magic Affinity bosses, you want to have every chance you can to keep them up as much as possible so they don't go under Poison Cloud, right?
Yeah.
Any way you would change this, personally?
No, looks great. Looks great. I guess you could also put him in Affinity Breaker set, which is a bit of a wacky choice, but helps with the affinity. But probably because he buffs as well, you'd probably just lean more towards Reflex or Relentless, just do the move more often, I'd say. But it's worth noting.
So, all right, guys, that was basically the build and the masteries and the way that we would build, or I would build this champion, and Nub Raids kind of agreed, I guess. Let's just go into the Hydra now and try and take out some bosses. Let's get into it. So, all right, this was a team that I actually put together for the Nightmare difficulty. And as you guys see, we have got a Rhizovarg in the lead. We've got a Snake Track for decreased speed to coincide with our Firrol. And we've actually got Artak in the mix. And then, of course, Coroner for our Provokes. But this could be a a Physics Stun Boat for your Provokes. It's not a problem. It's just someone that I've always loved to use. So I actually feel like this is a pretty, I would say, half-accessible team. Because Rhizovarg was a fusion. Lydia's free from doing Faction Wars. Artak was free. Snake Track, a great decreased speed option, but not the only one in the game, right? And then Firrol, if you manage to pick him up. It's a pretty cool team, I guess. We haven't got any increased attack in here at all.
Right.
It's just kind of raw damage, and using it, I wanted to see how much his passive could boost our damage into battle over the course of the run. And I did it without Firrol and then with him. So I had a Duchess at first, and I got around 48 to 50 million, whereas this one pushed upwards of 70 to 80 million. So we had a lot more increase in this team,
Damn, yeah. So that's very like that comment you saw earlier where the guy went, 3 to 500? Similar sort of gains, almost double. Yeah, that's massive actually to actually see that tested back to back. One interest. Speaking of accessible, she is technically I know neither of us have her, but Lady Mikage is a champion that everyone will get eventually, right? Like there's a decent chance you're gonna get it in the next few months. Like I'm fairly close myself, hopefully, fingers crossed. But she's an amazing combo with Firrol, right? Because she brings increased attack for your team, which is great. Ally attack, which is great with his A1 because it's 100% decreased speed. She also brings buff extension and debuff de-extension, right? So she cleanses off those fears if they ever go onto Firrol. And she extends the buffs to make it more consistent. So she's a really nice, that's when I see comboed with him a lot.
And can you guys see as well? I'm not sure if everyone's been paying attention, but we have been resisting every single debuff coming our way. And my Rhizovarg, look at that. No resist from Mischief. We got resistance on Rhizovarg. These champions are not built for the level of stats that you've seen from the Raid Shadow Legends stages tool. And this is the first time, Nubs, and I know we spoke about this before. I have never been able to full auto Hydra in my life since it's the time that it came out. Look at this. How am I supposed to fail when we're resisting absolutely everything? You know what I mean? With very minimal requirements, man. I didn't have to think once about any of my builds. All I did was take Duchess out the team, put Firrol in. Game changed everything. pretty much.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I have no idea if they will ever add new difficulties of Hydra, but decreasing their accuracy and increasing your resist, like he is going to make it super easy to still have this work exactly the same, even if there is an Ultra Nightmare. Whereas, yeah, it could be really tough to build a Mischief tank or something. Let's say you're doing a Mischief tank strategy. It could be really tough to get them with like enough resistance, but when you have increased resist and you've got decreased accuracy, even if they double the amount of accuracy on that head, the impact on you is actually much smaller when you've got those buffs and debuffs, because it sort of just minimizes it by half. So.
Yeah, 100%. And as you guys can see here, 80 million on Nightmare. And can you spot any revivers, Nubs? Do we need a revive here?
No, sir. No,
what we did was brought in a bit of leech, healed by the damage inflicted, resisted everything, and we had no problems taking this down. Like, as I mentioned, Coroner could be a Physics to Unbowed, will actually do provokes and decrease speed. So then you could use someone else for stick track. Maybe another provoker if you want, like a Husk with a max HP. So what I did want to bring up now is actually some images of some other teams. So we have got, hopefully not this one, that is a green screen YST. So we got this team here, right? So this is on the brutal difficulty, and this is what I would say an accessible team. So we've got Reiselvarg, Lydia, Firrol being the exception, Physics, Mifrala, and Artak. So pretty much all champions that was accessible to us from players, as players. Over 100 million on the brutal difficulty, and as you see, every champion was still alive. I had to cut this thing off early after 30 minutes. It was just taking too long, but you know, for someone that's trying to get to 100 million for your clash points, Firrol just comes in and makes everything so much easier when you're ramping up your difficulty levels. We've also got another team here. So a big shout out to my friend Fisher, who actually came up with this team. He said this is his best team he's ever done for Brutal. And let me just actually quote what he said, because I found it very interesting. Actually, I can't. Because if I do that, Nubs is going to disappear, guys. I think he said that he done 200 million more damage, or was it 20? Was it 20 million? Oh, wait. Let me just check and then I'll bring Nubs back, guys. Okay, so I just had to go and check what he actually said. We're back, guys.
The world froze for me for a couple minutes there.
So he actually said to me that his damage increased by 200 million. So he was sitting at around 478 before Firrol came to the mix. Bringing Firrol in with that extra damage boost. As you see, Rathalos with 260 million damage on the brutal difficulty, which is absolutely bonkers. And Mikage over there on Nubs' head, he was just speaking about, you could bring into the mix as well. That's pretty cool. So yeah, if anyone does actually want to see a full run, I will show you one towards the end of the video to wrap up with my, what's her name? My Marishka the Unbreakable, who can actually restore HP and stuff. Really cool one. If you guys want to check that out. Let's take all this off.
I've never heard of that champion. Is she any good?
Yeah, I was going to put her in this video and I was like, do you know what? We just leave it when we're not on the screen so people can enjoy it without us speaking over it. So I guess like that was kind of everything that I wanted to cover. Is any last thoughts here on Firrol The Barkhorn?
Did you want to show them the team I sent in to you? Will we throw that up on the screen?
Oh yeah, I'll throw it up right now, guys. Look, 3, 2, 1, and boom. It's right there. Imagine it there, Mr. Nubby. Do you want to speak about it?
Yeah, there you go. So this is from Joshua on my Discord channel. It says actual name. And yeah, this is probably the best team I've seen with this. So this is like super high end. So you've got increased defense from Sifi, and obviously increased speed from her. You've got Krisk in for decreased speed. I think Krisk's probably in Provoke set. Actually, maybe not. I'm not sure. Sorry, I was going to say the Curse set. He might well be still in the Curse set. But yeah, you got the double Michinaki for damage. They've got, Firrol boosting the damage. Lady Mikage boosting it as well. Mm-hmm. The ally attack as well. Her A1 bringing in the Michinakis. And you can see the damage that they've done is just crazy. Those Michinakis are pumping. So that's Firrol doing his thing. So yeah, there you go. You got the buff extension and you're good to go.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I've actually, look, we put the Marishka on the screen. I was like, nope, shall we do it quickly?
Oh.
All right, let's take this off. But yeah, I guess like while you're here as well, I just wanted to do a quick pull because we've got the Armand's Fusion going on. You might bring me some luck. So I've been really wanting a Mighty Yuka, right? So
okay.
I've got too many Duchess. It just seems weird to like want a Duchess in this video after speaking about Firrol for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So, here we go. We're bringing it double legendary, please, Mr. Nubby. I'm coming off a fresh mercy, so I doubt it.
I bless your account.
Come on. Oh,
here it is.
It's right up.
Now. Oh.
Do you know what? We're going for another temple. We're going for another one.
One more.
We're going for another one, guys. We have to buy like a couple more shards here. Free to play, look away.
And you did it with gems. That's free to play, essentially.
Come on, bring it home. Give me that double Lego. I was like, instead of making a whole video about this, throw it towards the end of this one. Like, who wants to see me pull Hex Weavers times 10? There we go.
Oh, got a lot of rares.
But yeah, guys, on that note, that is going to be all for today's video. We are going to be heading over to Nub Raids channel next for some spicy test server video stuff. Who was showcasing again? The mythical dude, right?
Yeah, Gizmo the ogre.
No, he's the terrible.
Oh yeah.
He's terrible. Well, let's find out if he is terrible, guys. But yeah, all of those links will be in the description below, and we'll catch you all in a video soon. Peace.